Hi, Gemini. Welcome to Pandora Astrology's monthly horoscope for January of 2023. We are the astrologers of Pandora Astrology. I'm Jamie Kale Miller. I'm in Berkeley, California.
And I'm Julia Mijas in San Francisco, California.
Well, let's take a look at January for you, Gemini. I'd like to start with two of our favorite asteroid goddesses, which are Juno and Ceres. Juno starts the month in Pisces right here in your 10th house. She's been in Pisces since July, so there's nothing new about that. And I've talked about it a lot in the last several horoscopes, so I'm not going to repeat that here. But just to say that she's going to be leaving this house pretty quickly, having traveled through the 10th house and bringing a sort of a partnership orientation and lots of work to do about partnership, especially in the career zone. However, Juno is going to move on into the 11th house around mid-month, right about here, January 12th or 14th. And the 11th house is a very social house. I do think that Juno likes to be here. Juno is the social maven. She's all about collaboration and partnership. She's quite the matchmaker and networker. And so being in the 11th house of community, tribe, and friends and friendship and building community, this is a really great place to find Juno. And she's going to be here for the rest of the month and into next month too. So this is definitely something to take advantage of. Next thing I want to tell you about is that Ceres is traveling along through Libra all month. And this is your 5th house. And Ceres is all about good stewardship. She's a very practical goddess, has to do with the things that connect us to the physical world and how we get grounded in the physical world by really being in our bodies and by paying attention to our finances and building wealth. She's in the 5th house, which is a house of fun and play and entertainment and children. And one thing you've got to watch out for when Juno is in the 5th house is becoming spendy, because this transit could make you more attracted to luxury items, things, buying things that are, you know, a sort of a reflection of your personal brand and really make you look great. And it's not a problem to do that unless you overdo it. And I think that's the risk with Ceres traveling through the 5th house, especially because as she's in the 5th house, for you, she's in Libra. And Libra really likes beauty. And so I think there is a bit of a caution there. Now, Ceres is going to slow down and will go retrograde early in February. You won't see that here because you'll just see Ceres moving along through Libra, but she's slowing down, going to turn retrograde. And when she does, you want to get ready for a financial rebalancing period that's going to go on from February to early May. And we'll say more about that in your next month's horoscope. Hey, Julia, let me toss the ball to you because I know you've got some news about Venus, Mercury, and Mars.
Oh, yes, I do. Hey there, Gemini. Good news is we've got some planets going direct this month. But before we get to that, I will mention a few things about Venus, everyone's favorite planet, because she's the planet that represents your relationship. And wherever Venus is in your horoscope is where you also find pleasure. So Venus is moving very quickly this month. She's going to go through 3 different houses. She, for the very first day of January, she starts in your 8th house. She was mainly there last month. And the 8th house is a house of other people's money. I have a lot more to say about that too in a second. But for the first day of January, you know, your focus might be on sharing your resources with your partner if you're currently in a relationship, and also creating greater intimacy with them. But very early on in the month, on January 2nd, Venus actually goes into your 9th house. Now, if you have any holiday vacations planned around now, this is a lovely, lovely transit for it. And if you don't, it's a good time to start thinking ahead for your next vacation you might want to plan, because the ninth house is a house of foreign places, travel. It's also a house of education too. So Venus, when she comes into the ninth house after on January 2nd, it's a great time for a pleasure trip. If you're single, maybe you'll have a holiday romance. And if you're in school, then it's a really good time for just getting along well with the people that you go to school with, your classmates, as well as teachers. Then by January 26th, for around the last week of the month, Venus enters your 10th house. And the 10th house is a house of authority figures. So that's anyone who tells you what to do, like a boss or a teacher or your parents or your, anybody, a police officer, all of those types of authority figures. And when Venus comes into this house, it's actually a good time if you need to suck up to any authority figures, whether you're trying to get a better grade or, please your boss in some way. The 10th house is also a career house. So you could be getting a lot of pleasure from your career or your life direction with Venus in the 10th at the end of the month. Now, I said I'd say a few more things about the 8th house. Mercury, the planet that represents your mind, starts the month retrograde in your 8th house. So the 8th house, again, this is a financial house. It has to do with the money you share with other people. So that could be anything from investments, things you share with institutions like banks, stocks, crypto, that kind of stuff, or the money you share with your family and your partner. So Mercury retrogrades, these are kind of squirrely times a year. They happen about 3 times a year. And when Mercury goes backwards in the sky from its apparent motion, it's a time of having to sort of rethink, review, and also deal with miscommunications. So with Mercury retrograde in the 8th house at the start of the month, you could be having a lot of miscommunications over money, and you might be having to sort of rethink a lot of your financial life, your financial strategies, especially because tax season is not too far away. Really good time to just kind of have to go over everything, maybe one or two more times than you thought you did. Then on January 7th, a retrograding Mercury exactly conjoins the sun, and we call that Lesser Epiphany Day. Any conjunction of Mercury and the sun is an Epiphany Day, but it's lesser because Mercury is retrograde instead of direct. Then it would be greater. However, on any of these Epiphany days, it's a time of insights and revelations, and you might even get a little bit of clarity regarding what that whole Mercury retrograde cycle was all about. So since this is still happening in your eighth house, you might be having some aha moments about the your financial life during this transit. The 8th house also represents investigation and research too. So maybe that's an area of your life where this whole Mercury retrograde cycle is taking place, and around January 7th you get the insights into what you've been researching. Then on January 18th, Mercury goes direct, and it's going to take about a week after that for Mercury to sort of reach the full speed in the sky. So that's when by the end of the month, the whole retrograde Mercury cycle will be over, and things shall be moving more smoothly. And then finally, the really good news is Mars, who's been retrograde for a few months now, throughout the fall and early winter, has been retrograde in your sign. So this has really hit you personally, Gemini. So Mars has been retrograde in your first house of self. And Mars is a planet of activity, action, also anger and frustration too. So the last few months may have been a personally frustrating cycle for you. When Mars is retrograde in the first house, maybe you've had more flare-ups than usual. Maybe you've had, your temper has been a lot shorter, and you've had to sort of take things back. Now, since Mars is a planet of action, when it's retrograde, it's a time of redoing. So you may have had to sort of redo a lot of things lately, maybe frustrating projects, maybe health stuff, because the first house represents your physical body too, or maybe you've had to take back some things you said while you were angry, which can happen. But on January 12th, Mars finally goes direct. It won't be retrograde for another 2 years. It's not going to hit your sign again for a very long time. And then slowly, as Mars gains speed in the sky, things will be a lot less frustrating, and you can kind of hit those projects head on without having to go back over again.
Looking forward to it already.
Oh, yeah.
Got a couple of moons to tell you about, and also the seasonal change as usual. The first one is the full moon in Cancer. It happens on January 6th. Right here is the moon in your second house, and it opposes the sun right here in the 8th house. And this moon we're calling hard work and deep care, because of the pull of the sun in Capricorn towards emphasizing hard work and building a reputation and making a lot of sacrifices along the way. Whereas moon in Cancer, moon is at home in Cancer and loves to be in Cancer. And it's just so very nurturing, so very caring. It's emotional and intuitive. It's flowing and loving. And so there's a very strong dichotomy that's built right into this full moon. So it's going to pull you in these two directions, and it's lying here in your chart along the axis of finance. The moon is in your second house. And wherever the moon is full, we're going to see some pretty big emotions. And the second house is the house of your own personal finances. So you may have some strong feelings about your own money and feel like you have to make sacrifices in the area of money that you share with other people, which is your 8th house. So there may be some dilemmas that you're facing under this full moon that for you really land in the financial arena and involve some push-pull with your partner, whether that's a marital partner or a business partner, and whether you have to make sacrifices or could remain attached to your own monies. So there's that one. And then on January 20th, the next thing that happens is the sun changes signs. And so we saw the sun through the end of Capricorn right here. Capricorn season comes to a close and Aquarius season begins January 20th. This is the season of the light beginning to return. Now, that already really began to happen at the solstice, but this is where we really start to notice it. And so in cultures around the world, there is a lighting of candles. There are ceremonies about the light returning. And so this season can have a really uplifting quality for that reason. As the sun moves into Aquarius, it enters into your 9th house. And, you know, I like to say that wherever the sun goes, we want to bring the sunlight of our high quality attention so that things can thrive and flourish in that area. The 9th house is the house of your philosophy of life. It also pertains to higher education and travel. And so when the sun comes into this house, put some attention on these things. Maybe it's time to plan that trip. Maybe it's time to move along with your education, decide on a program and get involved with it, or continue with a program that you're in. And it might be time to spend a month being the seeker in your own life in a more internal and abstract way. In other words, asking yourself, does my philosophy of life, which might derive from your religion, maybe your religion of childhood or a religion you've adopted as an adult, does my philosophy of life really provide answers to the big questions of life? Like, why am I here? And why do bad things happen to good people? And does my philosophy of life allow me resilience? So this is a really good month for being the seeker in that way. Now, the last thing that I want to tell you about is the moon, the new moon in Aquarius right here, also in your 9th house. So bringing the moon's emotional energy to that pursuit of understanding the answers to life's really big questions. New moons signal rebirth, and this one's in Aquarius, which is a sign that has very much to do with groups and community, much as the 11th house does. This moon we're calling Nurture the Tribe, and a new moon is a really good time for planting seeds. It's a really good time for starting things, and things generally begin in darkness, in mystery. You plant seeds in the ground where you can't see them begin to germinate. This moon is about planting the seeds of community, of tribe. So we're calling it Nurture the Tribe for that reason. And because it's landing in your 9th house, you might want to consider matching yourself up with a tribe, a community, a group that agrees with your philosophy of life and where you can expand and grow. That kind of environment for you. So this is a really good time for planting those kinds of seeds. That's all we've got for you today, Gemini. We love making these horoscopes for you. And if you love them too, please do hit that like button, because it really matters to us when you tell YouTube how you feel. Let your friends know about our horoscopes too. Have a gorgeous January. And until next time, we'll see you around the cosmos. Bye.
Bye-bye.